While we're waiting, uh, do you
Yes.
know, is the shul paying Rabbi Hoffman for those classes or no?
Um, the answer to the question is trying to remember.
Okay.
It may very well be that he this is something that goes back before this like last series that he did. He offered this as like you know he's just doing this as
Public
a
service?
public service for everybody.
Right.
Um, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
which which is awfully nice to say the least. um, okay, all right. So we are up to Sifkat on Yud. Let me share the screen for the benefit of anyone who would like it. There you go. So we're up to Sifkat on Yud, which is right over here. And the comments that are of the Mishnah Berurah here are built upon the statement of the Ramah, who says that even though Bafal Pishalo Locha Ha'eno Yehudi Rak Lishlisho L'Revia, that even though the non-Jew would be taking, let's say, in a sharecropper arrangement, would be taking a minority of the profits, okay, a third or a quarter of the profits, the Yeshli Yisrael Hana, and the Jew actually benefits from the work that was done by the non-Jew on Shabbos. The Yeshli Yisrael Hanav Mashayeno Yehudi Ovid b'Shabbos. Sure, that's still permissible. The Eino Yehudi Adaita Nafshe Abid, because the non-Jew is not working for on behalf of the Jew, is working rather on behalf of himself. Now, one important thing to remember here is that this is still okay. Why? Because the Aruch HaShulchan frames this as it's a shlichus. It's a shlichus type of situation. If let's say there are no profits at all for the non-Jew, from that which is produced or that from the profits that come in on Shabbos, that's just shlichus, because those profits are really mine. I pay the non-Jew a fixed salary anyways. He gets a weekly wage, a monthly wage, and if there's no, if nothing depends upon how much business comes in, then all the profits are really mine. Okay, as the Jewish business owner here. So that's really shlichus, and therefore the non-Jew is really doing work on my behalf, and that's why it's prohibited. If once it's part of the profits do go to the non-Jew, then they no longer are working as my shaliach, but rather they are working for themselves, because if they want to make money, then that depends on what the output is. If the output is 0, they make 0. If the output is 100 and they get a quarter of the profits, they get 25. And we view the 75 in that situation that goes to the Jew as, he terms it as grama. It's not directly something that was done on my behalf. It's just, that, hey, it turns out that there's this extra thing that goes to the Jew, but it was not done as my shaliach. That person was working for their own self-interests, and it happens to be that I get a part of that, what was the output, but the work was done on that output, on the profits that came in that day. It was not done because they were doing it on my behalf, solely on my behalf. They were doing it primarily because they want to make money. And so this is the only way that a Shabbos worker at a Jewish business is really permitted to keep the business running and functioning. Again, assuming that it's not rented out completely on Shabbos, that's a different story. That is permissible, though we talked about the issues of Marasayin in certain circumstances when that wasn't the normal arrangement for how to conduct business. Okay. Yeah. All right, let's now the Ramah's commenting here on this idea of the non-Jew getting part of the profits on Shabbos. Okay, again, we're right over here if you're using the screen, and if you're using your own, I think it probably is somewhere towards the similar part of the page. On mine that I'm using in front of me, it's the fourth line, not the third line. Okay. Rak lishlish v'chulei v'dafka bazeh, and specifically in this case, sheno sein la'eno Yehudi chelek batvua, where you give a portion of the in this case we're going to work with a field here, so we're going to talk about the grains, the produce. You give a percentage of the produce to the non-Jew. If you pay an annual salary to the non-Jew to work your field, but I get the tvua. I get all the grains. I pay you $100,000, and I get all the grains, whether there's one stock or a million stocks, whatever the output is, I get that. You get a salary, I get the grains. Then, after Medina bazeh gam kein shari, even though by the letter of the law that is technically okay, and I'll explain why that's okay because it doesn't fit with what I just said. What do you mean? All the profits go to me on Shabbos. The difference is by a field, the output doesn't change whether I deal with the grains on Saturday or Sunday. So let's read a few lines and I'll explain this a little bit more clearly. The non-Jew is working because they're working for themselves on that in that situation, even though all the profits go to me. Because even if I don't fertilize and plow and harvest the field on Shabbos, I'm able to the non-Jew could have done those things on Sunday, right? Why did he choose to work on Saturday that week? He doesn't get extra for working Saturday. His job is to work my field. I'm paying you to work my field. I didn't tell you what day to work the field, and I get all the produce. It wouldn't have made a difference if he works on Saturday or on Sunday. I still make the same amount of. I still get the same amount of grain. That he wanted to work on Saturday because he could have his Sunday free, that was his choice. And that's fine because I get nothing extra out of it. As the Jew in this situation owns a business, owns the field, I get nothing extra. If I get nothing extra from what happens on Shabbos, because it would have been exactly the same when they worked on Sunday, that's also permissible, even though the non-Jew has no portion in the profits from what happened on Shabbos. That's one also special arrangement where it would be permissible to have such a business on Shabbos. Mikol Makom, he writes, Mikol Makom, by the letter of the law that would have been permissible, but Mikol Makom, nevertheless, we prohibit this. The situation I just outlined is still prohibited, not by the letter of the law, but it's De'avo L'choshdo B'schir Yom V'lo Yitlu Ba'arisus. But the problem is people will assume that when, let's read one more part of the sentence. When they see that the non-Jew has no profits in the peiros haaretz, in the produce of the land, they'll say, he was a schir yom. A schir yom is an arrangement simply to pay you for the day. I pay you by the day, which means that I made a transaction on Shabbos as the Jew. So even though I would have gotten the same output, but people will maybe assume that this arrangement was I pay you by the day, and if I pay you by the day, every time at the end of the day I pay you, people will assume that you're a schir yom, and that means I engage in something that's called mekach umemkar b'Shabbos. I engage in a business transaction that was strictly and only on Shabbos. I told you in the past, behavla is part of a larger group, Shabbos is mixed in, that's fine. But once you separate Shabbos as a unique entity, then you've clearly done business on Shabbos. And that's problematic, according to the rabbis. That's a rabbinic prohibition, and the rabbis framed it as such that if it was behavla, as part of a larger subset, as part of a larger set, then it's okay to have the person working on Shabbos. At least from that perspective. So that's why, even though working the field on Saturday would have been okay in such an arrangement where he was an annual worker, I pay him by the year, annual salary, it doesn't matter because we have a fear that this person, people will walk by and they'll assume that he is a schir yom, a daily worker. As we'll talk about also this situation about the non-Jew working on Shabbos, and you make a certain arrangement with him to do the job. What will people think? What people think does play into this halacha, as we've already seen. Vida, right over here, where if you're following along on the screen, it's right where the pointer is. Vida d'v'merchatz k'hai gavna. And we know that in a merchatz, in a bathhouse, and similar situations, where you hire a non-Jew, you hire someone to work the whole year, and the Jew acquires all the profits of the Shabbos, even though I'm not paying you for Shabbos. I'm paying you an annual salary. But in a merchatz, it's not a sharecropper situation. It's I pay you a salary, and you work. And part of that is you work on Shabbos. That's midina asur. That's by the letter of the law. That's prohibited. Why? And he says, and the same would be with a mill in this type of setup where all the profits go to the Jew, and there's no sharecropper situation, and there's no and it's still prohibited. Why? He explains why. That when we said previously by the field, that was okay by the letter of the law. That's only by the field, the chadoma, and similar situations, the hamalacha kitsuva. This is an important line. Because the work is fixed. There's a fixed number. You can't, if you work the field every single day, it doesn't make more produce. There's a certain amount of bushels of wheat, and I don't know whatever the measurement is. There's a certain amount of output that a field can have. There's a maximum number. It's fixed. It's k'tsuva. And I can do the work on Saturday. I can do the work on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it is, however it works. There's a fixed maximum profit I can make. But when it comes, I don't really benefit from what the non-Jew does on Shabbos. Again, I was going to get a fixed number of the output anyways. They don't want to do work on Shabbos, fine. They do work on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and they make up for what they missed on Saturday already. And so therefore, if they choose to work on Shabbos, we say that the non-Jew is doing it for their own benefit. They want to get a vacation day on Sunday instead of Saturday, so they work on Saturday. But in the merchatz, yeah, we're right over here where the pointer is. Aval b'merchatz v'reichayim, in the bathhouse and the mill, Hamalacha eino kitsuva. There is no fixed amount, the maximum amount of output of profits. V'chol yom rebach la'atzmo. And each day that you run the business is profits unto itself, right? It's more profits. It's more profits. If you don't work the mill or you don't work the bathhouse one day, yafsid ha'yisrael osahayom. Then you know what? The Jew makes less money over the year. The business owner makes less money. So im kain ikar hamalacha b'shvil yisraelhu. That means that each day that's being worked, the essential part of that work is really on behalf of the Jew. And the umidina asur kamo schir yom, and by the letter of the law, it's prohibited because they're like a schir yom in the sense that not that I'm paying them every day, but every single day that you work, I benefit. This is really good for me. And it's not just, you chose to work the early shift on Shabbos so that you don't have to work on Monday or, you'll get some day off later. Your working is directly leading to my extra profits. Da'af mekabel sochar lo amrin arlayte denaf shav. And even yes, they're going to get paid their salary because they worked. They have incentive. I mean, they're getting, if they don't, they don't show up to work, I guess a certain amount of times, they might lose their job. We don't say that's called working for yourself there. Why? Since the Jew benefits from the work that was done on Shabbos, that's called working for the Jew. Right? It's not that I chose to work the early shift. Right? The more that they work, the more I make. That means that they feel compelled to do the work for me because I'll make more. And maybe down the road, that means they'll get a raise because they're such good workers, but they're really working for me. They're my shaliach.
Rabbi, what about some kind of hybrid arrangement where you own like a hair salon or a nail salon, and you're open on Shabbos, these people are paid an annual salary, but everyone knows that people tip, and that's a big part of the income for the worker. So there's an incentive for them to work. It's their own incentive, even though I'm getting benefit from their work. So
that might be something more akin to a sharecropper arrangement where, let's say 80-90% go to the Jew, but the Jewish business owner, but there is a reason for them to come in. They want to make tip money. So yes, I would think that once you have a situation, as the Aruch HaShulchan writes so very clearly, that any kind of arrangement. Sorry, I lost my page where he says this. Any kind of arrangement must have a situation where right? The person has to be doing it, have their own personal incentive, and he writes, right? And the good that the Jewish business owner gets, it comes memela, but they weren't doing it for me. They were doing it because they wanted to take the extra tip money. They know that they have another part of the salary. They have that's a separate part of it, but they wanted to make extra tip money today because all the other money today is going to really go to me. They're only going to get their salary when the monthly paycheck comes, let's say. So, that would, I think, be a permissible arrangement. The only question there, and there I think is a good practical question, because there I think also we would say that there's no situation of chashad, of suspicion that I'm paying you because normal arrangements are such that tips are a part of that line of business. It's not like sometimes people tip and sometimes people don't tip. People tip, at such a business consistently. So I would think that such an arrangement would be permissible.
Yeah, but that's only if they're salaried, but if they're paid by the hour, it's usually
correct. Yeah, that's correct. If you are making an arrangement with them where you may be able to pay them by the hour if you pay them in a total as part of a salary for the week or the month or something like that. If they are getting, if you clearly delineate on the paycheck, this was what you got for working Saturday, January 16th, that's a problem. You have to make the payment in a way where the part of the work that was done on Shabbos is not really recognized as its own entity. Once it's recognized once it's just encompassed in something greater, then it would technically, I believe, be okay by the letter of the law. You can't delineate a separate thing for Shabbos. So if, let's say, a person only works a Saturday shift, let's say they're a part-time worker at a hair salon, and they only work a Saturday shift, that's a problem. And they work somewhere else Monday through Friday, and they work for you on Saturday, that's a problematic arrangement from the get-go, even if it's just only Saturdays that they work and you pay them by the month. But if their only work is Saturdays, then it's a problem.
Excuse me, Rav, it seems to me that this whole notion is really splitting hairs. If you have a contractor that is going to take over the bathhouse and is going to operate the bathhouse, and
did everyone? I lost you, Simeon. The sound just went off.
Yeah.
You were in the middle of a sentence, and then I see your mouth is moving, but I didn't hear what you just said.
Let it load.
Oh, there we go. I hear you. I heard somebody.
If you have a scharion that took over, let's say with a 5-year lease, the bathhouse, and he pays you rent, and Shabbos is a very busy day for him, and if he didn't have Shabbos, he wouldn't have to pay you that big rent or that inflated rent. So you as the Jew are benefiting from the work that he's doing on Shabbos, even if it's 1 or 2 levels removed. Aren't you splitting hairs here?
Sorry, what was the exact situation, the case that you're talking about? I just, can you just repeat that one point, Simeon? That
let's assume the bathhouse case, and let's assume you have a scharion, a lessor, and got a 5-year lease on it, and he pays you a very nice rent every month. And his ability to pay that rent is clearly contingent on a whoopsie-doodle big-time operation on Shabbos. Otherwise, you would not be able to do it.
Let me differentiate here. I appreciate that you brought this up. Schirus, which is renting out the business, is different than a schir yom, or a schir Shabbos, or a schir chodesh, or a schir shana. That's when I hire a worker, right? For a year, for a month, for a week, for a day. Schirus is renting out the business, which is another way of saying I don't get any of the profits, right? You're pointing out, you paid me a fixed amount. Yes, just because Shabbos allows the non-Jew to pay the rental fee. Well, I'm sorry about it. Right? You're a lawyer, Simeon, I think, right? If I have an arrangement with you, you say the arrangement with the non-Jew is you pay me $100 every year, and for 5 years, so it's $500. And let's say you weren't able to make the payment because you kept the business closed on Shabbos because that was your, for whatever reason. You still owe me the $500. I can take you to court, and now I have a lien on your property because you owe me $500. So just because they make that money up on Shabbos, that's their problem. How they get their $500 to pay me, that's not for me to worry about. Because all the profits of the Shabbos work, I have nothing as the Jewish business owner. I have nothing to do with this. This is all you, and you figure out your life as as the person who rented out the business. All I care is that you make your annual payment to me for the business. How you got the money, I couldn't care less. It has nothing to do, and it's not really tied to the Jew. So that should be okay, assuming that such a business is normally rented out. The problem with the bathhouse that we saw was that people often will assume that that's not the arrangement. We're going to see in Sif Bays what happens if, though, you have a multi-year agreement, or year after year after year, it's always rented out to this particular non-Jew, even though it says Cohen's bathhouse. Can I then allow the non-Jew in the rental agreement to say, yeah, you can work it on Shabbos, and I don't have to fear that people will make assumptions that Cohen is a Mechal Shabbos? So we're going to see that in just a little bit. That will be permissible if there's a proper pirsum, a proper advertising of the arrangement. We'll get there in just a minute. Okay, if you take a look at the brackets here, where we are, Vafilu Lahataz. Again, you can take a look on the screen where the pointer is, or if you're using your own, it's where the brackets are. We'll see in the next siman, Reish Mem Daled, the Taz makes a particular comment. The Rambam did permit such an arrangement where, by claiming that the non-Jew works, even though all the profits go to the Jew, and the non-Jew is not a schir yom, they're a monthly worker, or an annual worker. So the Rambam seems to maybe allow such an arrangement, even though you would say that, and he'll say that it's a daita de nafshe avid, and maybe there's incentive financially, maybe because if I don't show up to work, I don't do the work, maybe I don't get I'll get fired or something. So there's incentive for the non-Jew anyways to work. He says you're near the Asr Gam Kein Bazeh Medina, but in this situation, even the Rambam would agree that it's problematic. The Regilus Lahakbid Al Ha'eno Yehudi Kishmevatel Ezeyom. He say, I paid you by the annual salary, so maybe if I don't work on Shabbos, I don't work on Shabbos. So if I choose to work, that's my call, right? You're going to pay me anyways for the year, so maybe I'll choose to work on Shabbos. He says here it's not. You can't start splitting hairs. Why? Because I'll be very makpid. I'll be very particular. You stop showing up on Shabbos, I'll give you a little note on your desk that says, your lack of attendance has been noted recently. And yes, it's true you have an annual salary, but you won't have an annual salary next year if you stop showing up. So they're doing it for me. The whole reason they're showing up is because they're worried I'm going to fire them. Right, and so that means it's really my business. They're showing up is because it's for me. Anyways, the Kevin de Medina Usr, and since by the letter of the law it's prohibited, afilu nisparsem, right over here, afilu nisparsem shescharo lishona. Even if I publicly make the arrangement known that this guy who's working my business, I give him an annual salary. He gets $100,000 no matter what happens. V'gam hu chutz l'tchum, and I also let's say the business is outside the tchum, so there's no fear. It's no Jew is going there on Shabbos. Jews are not allowed to go outside the tchum on Shabbos, so you're not going to. No Jew is going to be outside the tchum, the outer boundaries of the city. The ein bo mishum maris ayin. So there's no suspicion that could be that maris ayin situation. Gam kein osir, it's still prohibited. Ve'ein heter ki im heicha diyesh la'eino yehudi ktsas chelek berevach hashabasos. It's only permissible when the non-Jew receives a portion of the output, a portion of the profits that come in on Shabbos. Da'azamrinan, because then we can truly say the adaite de nafshe avid. They are working for their, because they want to. They're working for themselves. Even though I'm going to get some of the, I'll get some of the profit. I'll get, some of the profits. They have to get some chelek. Umuter berechayim v'gam b'merchatz, and in a mill or even a bathhouse, this is permissible if you create a situation where they get a portion of the profits from that day's work. In a place where shenispar same hadavar, when it's publicized, as we will see, as we'll see in Sif Beis, the idea of publicizing it can circumvent the problem of people thinking that I'm a Machal Shabbos of the Maris Ayin issue. And certainly, it should be permissible if every Erev Shabbos I sell the business outright, and of course I publicize that outright on Erev Shabbos. Now, because of time, I'm just going to make one last comment before I was hoping we'd get to Sif Beis, but we'll have to see Sif Beis next week, which talks all about that issue of publicizing the arrangement. But in my snazzy Dirshu edition of the Mishnah Brura, he talks about here the this arrangement of selling on Erev Shabbos. This is something that you might know from today is highly, highly discouraged even though right here the Mishnah Berurah just said it's permissible. Why is this discouraged? And one of the leading voices to discourage us was Rav Moshe Feinstein. And he said that the reason that he discouraged this, he says, Vizmanenu, this is, he's just quoting from Rav Moshe Feinstein, Shiva avonoseinu harabim shmiras Shabbos eino karoi. He says, in our day, due to our great iniquities, Shmira Shabbos is not what it needs to be. Kasav b'shelos etshvus igros Moshe, he writes, sheyesh lahachmir v'lo lismoch al mechira afilu b'inyanenu she'en lesor ela midrabanan. Even when the whole fear here is a rabbinic, prohibition in the first place, he says, don't rely on a sale of the business. Shikevan shadavar parutz yavo lahakel yosef. People will start saying, oh, you see, it's a loophole. Look at this. He sold the business. If you were honest about it, then you would take no profits on it. But now you'll start to make arrangements where I'll sell you the business, and you'll make a funny arrangement where it's not really honest. It's like a wink, wink, nod, nod, and it's not really a real sale. You'll really give me you'll actually give me back what I made on Shabbos, but I didn't make it. You made it, but you'll give me what you made on Shabbos. Now I made it. I mean, I didn't really make it though. So he was worried that this would be. He says because shibarov pa'amim yesh bazeh harama. There's a lot of jokes and tricks. Sorry, somebody muted me. There are a lot of jokes and tricks that are made in this situation. And he says, "V'gam ein hamachira nasis kedin." The sale is not sometimes done even properly from the get-go. And he says that it's not a good thing. Rav Shlomo Zalman Rav Eliashiv and Rav Vosner were also of the same opinion. That's why even though Medina, by letter of law, it's okay, we say it is a problematic arrangement because people take advantage of the heter. That's what the Gedolim of the 20th century said. All right, we'll stop here. I see davening is about to start on the other feed.